this.
Hey, what's up pups, it's JR, and today I'm going to bring you my top 10 favorite melee weapons in Warframe. I'm just going to start off by saying this is not a list of the best melee weapons in the game, and all of these weapons on this list are based on my opinion. So if you get upset about some of these choices, you might want to get your priorities straight. Numbers 10 through 6 are in no particular order, and are all just weapons I like, so they're more like honorable mentions more than anything. The top 5, however, are in descending order of my love for each weapon, number 1 being my favorite melee weapon in the game, number 5 being my 5th favorite. The weapon spots are not just based on their stats, but my overall love or how much fun I had with them. So without further ado, let's get into number 10. Number 10 is going to be Dex Dakra. Now, I chose Dex Dakra to be number 10 because I do love it and I think it could be really effective with a full build, but as of right now, I do not have a full build on it or even a Riven mod for it, unlike 8 of the other melees on this list. But I still love this weapon nonetheless, purely because of the way it looks. Not only is it just beautiful to look at, but personally, my favorite thing in Warframe from an artistic standpoint is the Lotus, making Dex Dakra look even better to me. Not to mention that, to my knowledge, Dex Dakra is the only dual sword weapon that actually uses 2 full-size swords, whereas other dual sword weapons use a sword and a dagger counterpart, or just aren't actually swords at all. Anyway, Dex Dakra is coming in at only number 10, so I don't have much to say about it other than I love this weapon. Or, these weapons? I don't fucking know. Up next, number 9 is Guandao. When this weapon dropped, I'm going to be completely honest, I was less than excited to hear that we were going to get another polearm, even though the current polearm stance mods are kinda lackluster compared to the other stance mods in the game like Tempo Royale and Sovereign Outcast. However, when I saw it in-game and got it for myself, I fell in love. The first thing that drove me to build it was the fact that it reminds me a lot of Hisako's Naginata from Killer Instinct, Hisako being my favorite character in that entire game. Then, when I actually got it and saw the stats, I saw the huge amount of potential this weapon had. Decently high damage with very nice crit potential, on top of the fact that it innately matches Shimmering Blight, which has an awesome attack for the charge attack combo. I actually had a Riven for Guandao that increased its damage and crit chance by a huge amount and made it one of my strongest melee weapons, but I ended up selling it for 500 platinum because it was too comparable to a melee weapon that I used a lot more, and we'll be seeing that melee a bit further down the list. On to number 8, which is the most recent hammer to be added as of me making this video, Arca Titron. I actually live streamed when I first got it on Twitch so I could archive my first impressions because, unlike Guandao, I was already hyped when I first heard about it. Like every other hammer, Arca Titron has a large amount of base damage with a pretty hefty crit chance but low attack speed. But what makes this thing stand out from the other hammers is the fact that it has a unique mechanic in the form of its slam capacitor, which is fun to make jokes about in its own right. With every kill, Arca Titron builds up a charge to its slam capacitor, which releases a massive plasma discharge upon a slam attack. You can stack up to a maximum of 10 charges, but even if you expend them early on, after, say, 3 kills, the plasma discharge still deals a guaranteed electric proc, which is very helpful if you need to get out of a situation without getting shot. However, if you get to the maximum charge, you deal massive damage to anyone in a pretty sizable range, making this weapon even more deadly. As a final note, it just looks badass when it's deployed, and when it's not deployed, it's pretty funny because it looks like you have a Nerf hammer holstered on your back. Number 7 is going to be Venka and Venka Prime. Now, this one's going to be a bit different than the other melees so far because I'm actually kinda disappointed in this weapon. I used Venka way before Venka Prime was released, so I was super hyped when I found out it was coming out with Valkyr Prime and Cernos Prime. In addition, it was the first thing I thought about when Melee Rivens dropped. However, because of how effective Venka Prime is and how many people used it, when Melee Rivens did get released, it was given a very low Riven disposition. So needless to say, I was pretty damn upset about that. But in the end, I ended up getting a Riven that increases its damage and crit chance, so even though the stats were low, it's still much more effective than it would be without the Riven in the first place. Now that that story's over, I loved Venka from when it was first released because, in my opinion, War Claws are some of the most badass weapons in existence. I mean, they just look menacing. For a while, if you asked me who my favorite superhero was, I'd probably say Wolverine, purely because War Claws were his entire deal. But then I realized I didn't really give a shit about superheroes. Number 6 is going to mark where things start to get a bit weird. If you didn't know, I'm very much an off-meta player in Warframe. In fact, I don't even like the fact that the concept of meta exists in Warframe, but that's a topic for another video. Hint, hint. Anyway, enough beating around the bush. Coming in at number 6 is Heat Sword. Now, at first glance, Heat Sword does not look like anything more than one of those stepping stone weapons you use at low levels before you get the good shit, but I recently came across a video by AllBlade4 titled "The Heat Sword Isn't Bad." Out of curiosity, I checked the video out, and Blade pointed out something I didn't even consider, and that was to essentially give Heat Sword a status/finisher damage build. Basically, he points out that the mod Condition Overload doesn't just boost your damage, but also your finisher damage. So he threw that on, along with some dual status mods, and then proceeded to kill a level 150 Corrupted Heavy Gunner with a single stumble finisher from the Crimson Dervish stance mod. I gave this a shot, built Heat Sword, got a Riven for it just for shits and giggles, and put 2 Forma in it for a full build, and then I tried my hand against a level 130 Drakkar Manic Bombard. The results will shock you. Needless to say, Heat Sword is the very definition of a sleeper, and I'd like to thank AllBlade4 personally for discovering this. If you want a Heat Sword for yourself, you can go to the link in the description and type in the promo code FREESWORD to get a free Heat Sword complete with a weapon slot and pre-installed Orokin Catalyst. I'm not sure it will still work or not by the time you see this video, but it can't hurt to give it a shot. Breaking into the top 5, and thus the 5 weapons that are in order of my love, we're starting off with none other than the Dragon Nikana. Not Nikana Prime, Dragon Nikana. I chose Dragon Nikana for a number of reasons. Firstly, it looks fucking awesome. My favorite thing namely being that the hilt meets the blade with an awesome lotus design accented with the emissive map of the weapon, aka the energy color. The scabbard I'm actually not very fond of, but that's easily fixed with a quick 50 platinum purchase of the Gemini Nikana sheath pack, giving you the Cert form sheath, which has an awesome fiery effect along the length of the scabbard, and the Emir form sheath, which has the polar opposite with a sweet icy cool design. Get it? Polar opposite? Fuck, I'm funny. The main reason I use Dragon Nikana over Nikana Prime is the fact that Nikana Prime has a weak Riven disposition because of how strong it is. However, Dragon Nikana has the other end of the spectrum with a strong 5-star disposition, making its Riven potential extremely higher than Nikana Prime's, even though the two weapons are already very comparable in stats. Coming in at my number 4 favorite melee weapon is Kama. Not dual commas, not dual commas Prime, Kama. I swear that's the last time I'll do that. Kama is the only quote-unquote machete that I've ever actually liked, mainly because, you know, Kamas are much more badass than machetes, at least in my opinion. I got Kama on a whim shortly after Melee Rivens were released because I knew it would have a 5-star disposition. However, I didn't know that I would end up getting this as a Riven for it. The negative slide crit probably just made a lot of you Rafflecopter fuckboys, people, stand on your chair to try and get away from that blasphemy, but Kama isn't a crit weapon in the first place. None of the machetes are. They are based around base damage, even though admittedly that wasn't done very well. Either way, the Riven adds so much damage to Kama that I take it with me on pretty much every infested sortie and proceed to fuck shit up, even without the Cyclone Kraken stance mod. Looks badass and is effective at wiping the most annoying faction in the game. A+ from me. Number 3 has got to be Graham. Back in the day, this thing was actually a pretty common sight. However, with the release of War and Galatine Prime, pretty much everyone forgot about it. But don't worry, Graham. I didn't forget. Here, have this Riven mod that makes you a viral proc monster, and this Cleaving Whirlwind that will drastically increase your damage by using the Broken Bull combo, all while being super fun for me because I'm spinning around like a merry-go-round and killing everything that dares step in my way. I'll never forget you, Graham. Number 2 is going to be another curveball for some of you, Fang Prime. When I first started Warframe, my first loadout that didn't involve any of the default weapons was Cernos, Kunai, and Fang. And for those of you saying, hey, Kunai is a default weapon and /or starting weapon. Back in my day, you didn't get a choice on what you started with. You got an MK1 Bratton, Lotto, and Skana, and that was it. But anyway, Fang was my main damage dealer back in the days of the low master ranks, and even more so when I finally got Fang Prime. At one point, I had convinced myself that my build was broken because I would suddenly do 80,000 damage without any sort of warning. Blood Rush didn't exist back then, and I didn't realize what a corrosive proc was, so I had no clue. I just thought I had a bugged, super powerful Fang Prime. I later found out that it was just my stance mod that was doing that, because one of the combos of Sinking Talon increased your damage by 200% on one hit, and another did it on 2 different hits throughout the combo. But it being my first non-default melee weapon, on top of the fact that I thought I had a bugged god weapon, secured Fang and Fang Prime a special place in my heart that will never go away, even after I've long since abandoned Warframe. And finally, my number 1 favorite melee weapon in the entirety of Warframe is hate. That's right, boys and girls, the Stalker melee weapon that predated war is my favorite melee weapon in the entire game. This is also the weapon that was too comparable to Guandao, which drove me to sell my Guandao Riven. But before we get into the bread and butter of why I love hate so much, let's play a little game. I'll take 3 of my favorite characters from a few series, and I want you to tell me what they all have in common. Ready? Here we go. Okay, time's up. Did you get it? That's right, they all have scythes. If you ask me, scythes are simply the most badass weapon in existence. Technically, they're a tool used for farming, but you can't look me in the eyes and tell me that it wouldn't make a pretty fucking brutal melee weapon. Not only do they simply look scary and menacing as fuck, they also have a pretty scary reputation as well, seeing as how the fucking harbinger of death himself, the Grim Reaper, chooses to use a scythe to bring people into the afterlife. Fun fact, the Grim Reaper is called such because the action of harvesting crops with a scythe or sickle is called reaping. Anyway, you can most likely tell that I love scythes. I've recently started playing the free MMORPG Aura Kingdom in the event that I get sick of Warframe, and I chose the Reaper class without a second thought, even though I never played a Summoner class in any game in my entire life because— Holy Betty White tit fuck, look at the size of that son of a bitch! That's both awesome and ridiculous at the same time, holy fucking ass tit balls! But as you can imagine, when I was going through the melee weapons in Warframe, I had a compelling urge to get hate as fast as possible. Unfortunately, according to Warframe, as fast as possible means farm for a grand total of about 800 hours and we'll drop it for you when we feel like it. And I'm not even exaggerating, it took me 800 hours to finally get hate. But when I finally did get it, it was exactly what I was hoping for. Slow-ish, but extremely effective at killing enemies. And when melee Rivens were released, hate took the cake for not only my favorite weapon, like it already had, but also the strongest weapon I have in general. All thanks to Hate Visicron. Plus 304% damage? Are you fucking serious? I know it has a 5-star disposition, but mother of God, it was already strong enough. But anyway, that's gonna wrap up my top 10 favorite melee weapons in Warframe. Leave a comment down below telling me your favorite melee weapon, and afterwards, if you enjoyed this video, consider dropping a like, and make sure to hit that subscribe button to become a pup if you haven't already. My name's JR, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Inside this fantasy, it seems so real to me.